podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hi and welcome to the Paddock and the Pavilion with me, your host, Stephen Wallace. On today's show, we have more Ashes chat for you. This time, Roland Butcher, our regular pundit, gives his forthright opinions on the 5-match Men's Ashes series. A stumping, a retirement, a possible retirement are all covered by the former England Test player who even takes a question from a former Australian opening batsman. Roland concludes the podcast by adding his thoughts on the state of West Indian cricket and the forthcoming World Cup. Find out who he thinks will win the 50 overs aside event in India. Hello, Roland. Welcome back to the show.
Stephen, thank you very much. And great pleasure and honor always to be on your show and looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. You were right, though. You got the score right. 2-2.
Well, I'm very pleased that I've actually got it right because quite often you make predictions that don't come true. But I always felt from the offset that both teams were quite evenly balanced and both of them I felt would win test matches. Hence my prediction of 2-2 at that stage because I couldn't separate either side in terms of victory. And I think the rain certainly helped Australia in that fourth test match, which meant that we went to the Oval still 2-1 down and the possibility of 2-2.
I think on an earlier podcast in March, you actually said that one of the games would probably suffer from the rain. And your friend Sean Belushi actually sent me a WhatsApp message to say that you got the score right 2-2 with one rained off match.
Yeah, well, it was to go through the whole summer of 5 test matches in a short space of time and not get any weather interference, it's asking a lot, particularly with the summer that we had last year. I just felt this year we're perhaps not going to be that lucky and get sunshine all the time, so we lose some time. I didn't realize it would happen certainly at that fourth and important test match because I think England would have gone into the last one with a lot of pressure on them to try and win it, and obviously they did.
We're going to move on to talk about the series. I think a series of 2 halves, really. But did you think it was a fair result 2-2?
I think in the end, I think both teams would have settled for the 2-2. Maybe England may be a little bit disappointed that if they'd done one or two things a little bit better, they could have easily won the series and won it comfortably. But I think Australia will take the 2-2. I mean, they would feel perhaps that having had such a great start, that they could have gone on to clinch it. But at the end of the day, I think they would also realise that they were quite fortunate to come away with the draw. So I think both things will be happy.
Well, I've got some questions as we go along. One coming up from a former Australian Test player. But the first one is from a friend of mine called Kenny Hutchinson, who now lives in Lanzarote. Not a cricketing hotbed, I don't think. But he's very nice place, yeah. He's asked me, should the Ashes be shared after a drawn series?
Well, that's a very good question, whether it should be shared. At the end of the day, the result, nobody won. So, but, they have it at the moment that if you are the current holders of the Ashes and there is a drawn series, then basically the team who are the current holders maintain the Ashes. I guess that's a question that can be discussed going forward. But I think the record books and the way it should be played out is that in actual fact that the series was drawn, and I think it should be spelt out more that you only retain the Ashes simply because you won it before.
Splitting the podcast into 2 halves, talking about the Edgbaston Test and the Lord's Test, should England have won at Edgbaston and Lord's?
I think that first test match for me, right at the beginning, I thought England made a fundamental error. Sorry, that was the first test match, actually. When they declared the draw route still at the crease on 100 plus. For me, that was a little bit of arrogance on the part of England. I thought they've only batted at that stage for 70 overs, if that. to have declared with Joe Root still at the crease. The tail could have wagged. They could have got another 50, 60 runs, would have put them in pole position in the test match. I felt really that, they put the game in Australia's lap at that point by doing that. And in terms of Lords, again, that was another game where mistakes were made, and they got punished for it.
I mean, at Edgbaston, the Australians put on 55 for the 9th wicket to win the game. Pat Cummins and Nathan Lyon.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Australia, that Australia, the history of Australian cricket is that the tail always wags. You don't have 4 number 11s in their side. They may not be technical batsmen, but what they do offer at the back end of an innings is, they get stuck in and they fight and they play to the situation. So if the situation is that a tail ender has to hang around, that's exactly what they do. So that, it's nothing new that the Australian tail gets runs to help them get out of trouble. So it certainly helped them on this occasion.
Moving on to Lords, England were 188 for 1 in their first innings. And what did you think to their batting when they took on the short ball, particularly at the end of the second day? And we finished up getting bowled out on the third day for 3-2-5.
Yeah, I guess probably a bit of arrogance, overconfidence. Obviously, Australia had to change tactic because up to that point, it wasn't working. And obviously went on the short ball side, knowing full well that England would be bold and take them on, which they did. And, Australia got themselves back into the game. And really, I think when England look back on that test match, I think they would say to themselves really that as much as Australia won that test match, really England lost it.
I've got to ask you about the controversial incident. Well, you might not consider it controversial because I've got a question from a guest on this podcast on a few occasions, Rick McCosker, and he said, do you think that the dismissal of Bairstow by Carey was a defining moment in the series and a catalyst for the England team and Bairstow in particular?
I think what that incident did was really then created between the two sides a lot more competition. I think England certainly became much more competitive at that point. Perhaps before that, they were thinking, we'll wrap this series up quite easily, the way that we could, our new approach to the game. Obviously found themselves 1 down. But what that incident did was really pull the two sides apart, where England had to, distance themselves from Australia and try to play it hard. In terms of what actually happened, I mean, I personally believe that, it was out. That is my personal belief, because at no stage did the wicketkeeper catch the ball and wait and then throw the ball. It was all in one motion, really. He caught the ball and threw it. And, all credit to them. That is good planning. I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean, I've seen in football, I saw some very good planning once by a team who they were playing the opposition, and what they had noticed was that when the goalkeeper gets the ball at the edge of the box, when he catches the ball at the edge of the box, what he tends to do then is to roll the ball 3 or 4 yards and then kick it up the field. So what happened was, the striker chased the ball in to the keeper. Keeper picked it up. The striker turned his back as if to run back to the middle, knowing full well he was going to roll it out, then turned around quickly and he had rolled it out and just took the ball off him and put it in the net. So, that was good strategy and good planning. Obviously, Australia had done the same thing. They realized that Bairstow wanders around out of his crease, and the thing was that if the ball came through, they'd throw it back. Sometimes they would miss, or otherwise, on this occasion, they hit the stumps and he was out of his crease. So I had no difficulty with the dismissal. I think it was out, and but it was a defining moment because it clearly made England much more aggressive and positive in terms of what they needed to do. There was nothing friendly anymore. And that certainly helped England's cause.
It certainly fired up Ben Stokes at Lord's with his 155, 9 fours and 9 sixes.
Yeah, magnificent innings. How often have you seen Ben Stokes play that type of innings when the team needs it? And, he played a terrific innings there. But, yeah, I think after that incident, really, the series came alive after that, as far as I was concerned. Up to then, Australia had won that first Test match. This one here, obviously, they won and went 2-0 up. So, but I think England's resolve after that was set because of that incident. I think it was like, if to say, well, look, okay, this is how you want to play. Well, we're going to play hard as well.
Well, Rick didn't stop there. He's got a follow-up question. He wanted to know your thoughts on Brendan McCullum's, in his terms, hypocritical comments about the incident, because McCullum had actually run someone out or stumped someone. He stumped Paul Collingwood back in 2009, I think.
Well, listen, we've all done, certain things in the early part of our career. But when we were players, when we become coaches, it's a different matter. You've had Stuart Broad having similar discussions, and then you saw an incident where Stuart Broad cut the ball straight to slip and was caught. And, so he complained later on about something else. So, I mean, these things happen, especially in the early part of your career. Do you just carry that with you all the way through your career, or do you, make a stance? Listen, McCullum did probably the same thing years ago. And on this occasion, he had his say. But for me, that was all in the game. I don't see anything wrong with that at all. I do see something wrong with if you wait, and then when the batsman walks out of the crease, you do that. Now that's more deliberate. But if it all happens very quickly, what is the difference between the bowler bowling the ball, batsman tries to play it off his legs, it comes off the pad, which ricochets the short leg, who flicks it back at the stumps, while the batsman is just out of his crease? It's instantaneous. He didn't wait for the batsman to come out, so nothing wrong with that.
But going to Headingley 2-0 down, England recalled Mark Wood and Chris Wokes, but also Nathan Lyon was now out of the series. Those three changes made big impacts on the rest of the series.
Oh, Mark Wood was the defining factor. There's no question about that. That extra pace, and pace wins Test matches. There's no question about that. And extra pace, particularly, and he did just that. I mean, he made the difference. And really, up to that point, that's what was missing in England's setup. That type of pace that Mark Wood had in those early Test matches. The fact he came back then suddenly meant that England had a real weapon in the armory, and he did the business. And from there on, really, I think the whole series shifted from there on, really. From there on, Australia was hanging in all the way from that Test match right to the end. And so he made a difference. I think also Chris Wokes as well, his, he coming back into the side as well. Literally up the ante, so to speak. And Australia had to hang in there. And actual fact, quite lucky to get away with the 2-2 draw.
You had mentioned the importance of pace in the previous podcast, whether it be Wood or Archer. Wood was recorded at 95 mile an hour and took 5 for 34 in the first innings at Headingley. But Ben Stokes's 80 runs in that first innings when England were 142 for 7 against the Australian score of 263 was also very important.
Yeah, that was crucial. And, I felt Australia made mistakes in that innings. I was constantly in contact with my cousin in England, and we were chatting away. And when Ben Stokes was batting at the end, I think he was either batting with number 10 or number 11. And, there were still 90-odd runs in deficit. And they were chipping away. And the captain brought on Todd Murphy with Ben Stokes at the crease. And I told my cousin, Australia have just handed this test match back to England, because that is a huge mistake. I mean, Stokes is only going to play one way against Murphy. He's going to launch it. And his two overs, or I think probably about three maximum, cost him about 36 plus runs. And the deficit was down to 20 odd. And at that point, England were, back in the game. And I felt that's where Australia gave it away. I mean, if you were bowling at 9 or 10, your fast bowlers really should be very aggressive at the last two batsmen, not tossing the ball, hoping that Ben Stokes would miss hit. He did eventually, but it cost him, 30, 40 runs and put England almost on par with Australia.
Did Australia, though, miss an off-spinner who's nearly got 500 test wickets in Nathan Lyon?
I think they did, but I don't think the pitches were such that were, it wasn't leaping and spinning all series. Nathan Lyons would have done a good job, perhaps, controlling it, keeping it fairly tight. But would he have been as impactful as he normally is? I don't think the pitches would have given him that sort of assistance. Obviously, it's a loss because, the name Nathan Lyons carries some weight, in the England camp. I mean, they would be wary of him. But at the same time, I really don't feel that the pitches offered him, any great deal of turns. So would he have been a huge factor? I doubt it. I think the momentum had shifted by the time they got to Headingley. England were very much in the ascendancy. And really, I don't think what Australia did after that, I don't think they were going to really get back in the series from that point.
Well, England won at Headingley by 3 wickets. We then went to Old Trafford, where England scored 592 off only 107 overs. Really, Bazball was on fire.
Yeah. I mean, incredible. I mean, and he scored over 5 and over in the Test match. And you got 500 plus and just over 100 overs. That is unbelievable. I mean, Australia's response was as you would expect from Australia. But at the same time, then, it changed after that as well. And really, England at the end of the day could easily won a Test match as well.
Zach Crawley scored 189 off 182 balls.
Yeah, I mean, that's ball at its best. I think a key factor really in England's setup was, Johnny Bairstow's form, and how quickly he scored his runs. At the top that Crawley's going to, if he gets away, he's going to score quickly, which he did. Duckett gave good support, but I think Bairstow's runs, when they came quite quickly, really pushed England into that sort of situation where, they could declare and they could only bat for a short space of time. So it was important, really. And Bairstow was on a lot of pressure because, he had his critics because of the drop catches, etc., etc. But, I think in the end of the day, his batting really put England in a good place.
Yeah, Bairstow 99 not out. And then we moved to the Oval. You weren't surprised then that England won the last Test?
Not at all. As I said, I felt the momentum really had shifted after the Lord's incident. I think after that Test, really, I think England then really showed that, there's going to be a bit of resolve here. We're going to play this hard. And I felt really, I don't think Australia had another gear at that point. I don't think they were 2-0 up, but they just didn't have enough to be convincing in the third Test match. And they got a real lucky there with a draw. And, they said once you enter the Oval, England had to win. I mean, that's the only way they could stay in the series, not retain the Ashes, but at least come out with some sort of creditable draw. So Australia just didn't have another gear, even in that last Test match. I don't think they didn't have another gear, really.
An Australian captain didn't seem to trust Todd Murphy, so more reliance on the fast bowlers. Yeah,
I mean, the Oval, the spinners don't have a great time at the Oval because generally Oval pitches are if they're going to assist anybody, they assist the faster bowlers. They're usually good for batting. Murphy was never going to be, as far as they're concerned, was going to be a figure that was going to bowl 40 or 50 overs in the side. And I guess a lot of that was down to the fact that they were pretty sure the way England was going to play. They're going to be very aggressive, very positive, try and score quickly. The strategy of bowling the faster bowlers, putting the field back, it takes time out of the game. So, Australia didn't have to force the issue. They didn't have to win that test match. They just had to try and hang in there and see if they can save it, and they would have won the series. So they didn't come out on the front foot, and they didn't have to come out on the front foot because England had to do all the pressing.
Another player crucial to the win at the Oval and who played a significant role in the series, Moeen Ali. I know you're a big fan of his. He moved up to number 3. He got 9 wickets in the series, 180 runs at 25. And in that last innings, even with an injured groin, he got 3 wickets.
Yeah, I mean, he was obviously a key factor because without having a number 1 spinner and bringing Moeen Ali back, it always was a bit of a gamble whether his fitness would hold up for those test matches. All credit to him. He did, and as you said, he did have an impact by actually going up the order and batting very well. And then with the ball, he picked up crucial wickets. So, he played his part. And I think overall, it was a series that I really enjoyed watching. I watched it from afar, but it was pretty intriguing, just watching, how things were playing out. And yeah, Moeen Ali did a good job. I see now he's decided that it's time to go back into retirement. So, if England don't have a spinner next summer, maybe they'll have to call him again.
Well, Chris Woakes was England's player of the series, Mitchell Starc for Australia. Who would be your player of the series?
Oh, boy, that's a very good one. I think there was I don't think there was any player in particular who really dominated the series. I think at times on both sides, you had some very good performances. I mean, who can forget Khawaja's couple of innings? He played exceptionally well at the top of the order. Steve Smith, got 100. I mean, Zach Crawley. When Mark Wood came in, what he did. I mean, if Wood had played earlier, we'd have had a much more impact in the series. But I think Woakes, the timing of Woakes' contribution, I think, was critical. If you give it to Woakes at the end of the day, I have no difficulty in that. He did contribute significantly to the results, but it could have been a number of players who were player of the series.
One player who did make a significant contribution to the series was Stuart Broad, who announced his retirement from cricket at the end of the Oval Test, having taken 604 Test wickets in 167 Test.
Yeah, I mean, he had a good final series. Stuart Broad, he put in lots of effort. It is not often in a series that you say Broad outbowls Anderson. Generally, they're usually neck and neck, but I think you would say this final series that he certainly outbowled Anderson in the series. He got some results as well, so he can walk away from the game still feeling that he still had something to offer, that he didn't walk away struggling in the game. So, he did a good job, and, all credit to him. He's a long and loyal servant to the team. He will be missed by the team because, that number of wickets don't just walk around for anybody to have. And, his contribution to England's cricket really has been quite immense. And it was fitting, I think, for him to actually leave the game having won that test match, contributed himself, and not losing the series.
Yeah, 16-year test career, 153 wickets against Australia, a record. So you're saying it was the right time for him to bow out? Well, listen,
only he will know how his body feels, whether his body could take the pounding. I think people have to understand that international cricket is not easy, And it's even more difficult once you're a fast bowler. If you play 16 years as a fast bowler at international level, you're not playing Saturday afternoon at the local park. You're playing for the whole world to see. You're playing against top-line players. You're playing on good pitches. It calls for tremendous amount of physical fitness, your ability, etc., etc. So, and the pressure that comes with it as an international sportsman. So, only he would know whether he was capable of wanting to maintain the level of fitness that is required, whether he want to keep doing that, whether he want to keep running in, whether he wants to keep traveling, and what sort of shape his body was in. So, obviously he would have thought about all of those things and come to the conclusion that really, I've given all that I can. I probably cannot go much further, and this would be a good time to step away from the game.
Well, he took 22 wickets in the series and played all 5 Test matches.
Yeah, that's a success. He's left the game really on a high. Had he taken 2 wickets in the series and got dropped after the 3rd Test, then really, he would have walked away not feeling very good. But to get 22, even in the height of your career, if you get 22 in a series, you'll be happy with that in the height of your career, not more so the last game of your career. So, he did all that he wanted to, and perhaps he left it all at the Oval and didn't feel that there was any more to come after that.
Well, it was a perfect ending with him getting the last wicket of Alex Carey.
Yeah, those scripts are written. That's not something that you really dream about. It just happened. I think he hit the last 6 as well, didn't he? And the last ball he hit the 6, I think, in his career or something like that. So, he really did finish on a high. He got 22 wickets. He got a wicket on his last ball in Test cricket. I think he hit a 6 on the last ball that he faced in Test cricket. And England won the Test match and the series was drawn. So, he's ridden off into the sunset, smiling, I would imagine.
You mentioned Jimmy Anderson, who took 5 wickets in the series in the 4 Tests he played at 85. Where does that leave him? Do you think he should retire?
Well, Jimmy Anderson has said really he has no intentions of retiring, so which means that he still has a hunger for the game. It still means that he trusts his ability to perform at that level. And, he still feels, obviously, that his body can stand up to the rigors of fast bowling at international cricket. So only he will know that. Really, it's up to England to decide when and where they're playing. I would imagine that if he still wanted to play in series in England, he must come into consideration because every year the pitch is not going to be just flat or the ball is not going to move around. So if the ball is moving around, obviously he's a great exponent of that. So in English conditions, he's somebody that they can always go back to. The question will be whether when they go away on certain surfaces, whether they will choose him. India or Pakistan, where it's quite low and flat. Will he get selected there? Maybe not. But I expect to see Anderson still around next summer in English cricket.
Well, if so, he should be playing then against the West Indies, who have recently failed to qualify for this year's World Cup. How big a damage to West Indian cricket is the fact they won't be at the 50-over World Cup?
Obviously, there's lots of disappointments in every quarter in terms of because everybody wants to be part of the World Cup. So really, everybody's very disappointed that West Indies didn't qualify. But at the same time, it is also a timely reminder of where a game is and what it needs to do in order to get back to the level that it needs to get back to. So obviously, there's lots of work going on right now to try and get to that position. Everybody's very disappointed. Players, administrations, everybody's disappointed in not making it to the World Cup. But, we're not the first team not to have made it to the World Cup. But, it's not something you want to see happen on a regular basis. And, we'll be working hard to put it right.
But it was a tough qualifying competition with the likes of Zimbabwe, Sri Lanka.
Yeah, I mean, it was all, listen, everybody knew it was always going to be tough because, the teams that were involved, everybody, in terms of current performances, all the teams are pretty close together in terms of current performances. So when that happens, you can't say that there were any teams that were miles better than the other teams. You knew that, the teams were pretty close and there would be some even contests taking place. The pitches were very good. You saw the scores that were being put on the board. Perhaps West Indies, we didn't play our best cricket, but at the same time, we always knew that it was going to be a tough competition there. You would have thought that we had enough in the tank to qualify, but it didn't work out that way. And now we've got some work to do.
West Indies also just played a Test, ODI and T20 series against India, beating them in the T20s 3-2, losing 2-1 in the ODIs and losing the Test series 1-0. How do you sum up the multi-format series against the mighty India?
I think it was a good exercise and a good experience, against India. It doesn't matter what side India put out, they're going to be strong, simply because of everything that they have in their favour. So you always expect quite a competitive Indian team. So the fact that our team were able to perform in the manner that they did, as you said, lost the Test Series 1-0, the ODI 2-1, that was, did pretty well at that. And then to actually win the T20 series, I think that was, was very good for the region, and very good for the players for that to happen. And you're beating, you beat the number one side. India, the number one rated T20 side. So, they rested a couple of players, but, you're still playing against India. So we were very happy for that. And as you know, so that's the second T20 series that they won in a row, because previously to that, the last T20 series was in South Africa. We won that series as well. So, the T20 side is taking shape. We now need to really work hard on the other forms of the game to ensure that West Indies are a very competitive and well-rounded side in all forms, both Test match, ODI, and T20 cricket.
And you're still confident that can be achieved?
Absolutely. I mean, I have no question whatsoever about that. I just think that, we've got some very exciting young players on the horizon. Players you probably heard of at the moment, but you will hear very soon. I am very, very hopeful that, West Indies in the next few years will be extremely competitive. And, little wins like this against India, South Africa will also convince the players that, yes, that we can do it. And I have no doubt that, that in the next couple of years that West Indies will be competitive.
And you've got the T20 World Cup in the Caribbean and America in 2024. Yeah,
next year. That's a big year in the region. Hosted the T20 World Cup. And, that's something obviously that we're building towards now, because, at home we've got to play well and compete there. And, that's coming perhaps at a good time for us as well, where the team is getting some form. So we're looking forward to that next year.
Turning to the 50-over World Cup, which starts on the 5th of October with England playing New Zealand. What do you think England's chances of retaining the trophy they won in 2019?
Well, listen, winning back-to-back trophies internationally these days is very difficult. It is not easy. The teams are, there's not a lot of difference between the teams at the top level. So, any of those top teams can win. I think Australia will be very competitive again. You can't write off India for sure. And, Pakistan will be very strong as well. So I'm looking for, again, something that we know that, the winner is going to come out of that group. India, England, Australia, Pakistan. And, I think Sri Lanka is a team you've got to keep an eye on, actually. They're quietly getting their team back together. If you look through their side, you see a lot of quality players in the team. So, there could be a team that you've got to watch very carefully.
And what was your reaction to Ben Stokes unretiring in 50-over cricket?
Well, obviously, Ben has been persuaded that, one, they need him, and two, his body is still capable of the demands of, 50-over cricket. I'm sure if he had any doubts that physically, he would be struggling, that, he would stay retired. But he's obviously believing that, he can get through the 50-over game. Obviously, for England's side, I mean, that's a great fillet because, he's a top-class player. So that can only be an asset for the England team. We just have to wait and see, how pulls up, physically during the World Cup.
But still no Geoffrey Archer yet to play for England.
Yeah, my understanding is that he may be there as a reserve, so that if there are mass injuries or whatever, so which tells me that he's very close to full fitness. So again, that would be a good thing for England to have him back fit again, because going forward, I guess for him and Mark Wood, in any team, it gives the team that cutting edge, and particularly when it comes to Test cricket, fast bowlers are premium really in Test cricket. So I'm sure England will want to get him back as quickly as possible, and hope that, one, he is as good as he was before, and his fitness is, he certainly doesn't get the recurrence of the injury that he's had, and he's able to play for a sustained period.
Now, you got the prediction right for the Ashes, 2-2 with a rained off. You've sort of talked about who you think's going to be in the semi-finals, final. Who's going to win the 2023 50-over World Cup?
Well, that's a very good one. I mean, I would say basically at this point in time, I think India has got something to prove. I think you've got people talking about their obviously, losing, they lost the Test Championship. Obviously, they lost this T20 series against West Indies. People are, writing them off. But, I don't think you can write India off in India. That's their conditions. They know that very well. So, I mean, they're going to be extremely hard to beat. The question is going to be the other teams, how quickly they can adapt to conditions in India. Australia, they've had a pretty tough outing here in England. Can they lift themselves again? They'll be competitive. But I would hazard a guess, the team that perhaps have had a bit of an easy going recently is Pakistan. So they're going to be my dark horse, Pakistan. I think England are going to be there or thereabouts. India will be there thereabouts. Australia will be there thereabouts. I am going to put my money on Pakistan on this one. And your money too, Stephen.
And changing sports, because you got this right before, who's going to win the Premier? Actually, you didn't. You said Arsenal would win, and they didn't in the end. But who's going to win the Premier League? I know this is a cricket and horse racing podcast, but who's going to win the Premier League?
I think this year is going to be even closer than last year. Again, you can't write off Man City. I think Arsenal will be there. And I think Newcastle is going to be part of that trio as well. I believe it's going to come from those three, one of those three really. City, Arsenal, or Newcastle.
We'll come back to that in future podcasts. And your former side, Stevenage, have made a good start.
They have, yeah. I mean, I think they're third at the moment, so very happy with that. they're now in the big leagues. So to have started so brightly is great. Let's hope that they can keep it up. I'm not sure how big the squad is and whether it's strong enough to last the full campaign. But at the moment, they've made a perfect start.
But to end the podcast, did Bazball stand up to the test?
Well, I think Bazball, in the end, certainly got England the draw. I think the Australian coped pretty well with it the first two test matches. They obviously had a plan when they came for the New England would score quickly. What they did was set the field very deep, always had a deep extra cover, so that instead of getting 4 early on, they got a single. That unsettled England for a while. But all credit to England, they believed in their process. They didn't change after those first two test matches, and they continued trusting the process that had brought them success last year and got themselves back in the game. So was Bazball a success? England would say it was. Australia would say that for two test matches, they were able to control it.
The most exciting Ashes series, though, since 2005.
Yeah, most definitely, because, it could have gone anywhere. I think what was surprising was that Australia took a 2-0 lead. I don't think anybody, not even Australia, would have thought that the first two test matches, the series, that they would win. I don't think England would have thought so either. So, that brought a lot of intrigue and interest into the series. And, good fight back by England, really, because they were behind all the way. I mean, when you're 2 down, not easy to come back from 2 down, but, they did. Australia hung in there. And at the end of the day, as you said, a series was produced that had a lot of interest, not just in England, but all over the world. I think everybody was more interested in cricket, watched that series. I watched every game here in the Caribbean. It was a riveting series, and it could have gone either way at the end. And I think cricket gained from that spectacle, and the results. Perhaps the English supporters not too happy with the result, but I think at the end of the day, really, it was, as you said, rich entertainment that rivaled or surpassed the 2005 series.
I also heard from one of our previous guests, Bill Hearn, co-author of Football's Black Pioneers, that you're returning again to the UK soon.
Yes, I'll be there beginning of next month. As you know, my children are there. I'm also, my first assignment is reopening the sports facilities at Westminster School, a place where I was a football and cricket coach for 9 years. So I'm really coming for to get that done, and obviously see the kids and family.
So have you got some work with the BBC for the county championship?
Yes, of course. The BBC. I'll be doing a number of games for the BBC while I'm there. But looking forward to it.
Well, thank you again for being on the Paddock and the Pavilion. Hopefully we can catch up again. It'll probably be late November, early December, when we can look back at the World Cup in India. Yeah, well,
let's hope the World Cup is as exciting as we all want it to be. I'm sure it will be, because some of these teams have not been busy of late, and obviously, this World Cup is something that a lot of them will be preparing for. So I'm looking forward to some really good cricket, and hopefully a few more stars are born at the end of the series.
Well, I'll be looking out for your prediction now for Pakistan to win the 2023 50 over World Cup.
Yes, and I just got that feeling really that Pakistan are ready to step up. They've been playing some pretty consistent cricket of late, and with the cracks showing in some of the teams, this really is a good opportunity for them.
Yeah, I don't think any opening batsman fancies facing Shaheen if he's fit.
Well, I mean, listen, there are good or wrong side who, if they're perhaps have a little bit more self-belief in themselves, could really challenge the so-called big teams. But India have got to. They're under pressure. I mean, their public's going to demand a lot from them. They're play at the moment. There's a lot of discussion around India's cricket by not just people on the outside, but I'm reading a lot of articles by ex-Indian players, and they are concerned about where India cricket is going at the moment. So that in itself can put a lot of pressure on the players. So if India win this, all credit to them, because they wouldn't have just won it on skill alone. They would have had to overcome tremendous home pressure to get there. So I'm going to watch and see how they perform.
Well, thanks again, Roland, for joining me.
Stephen, always a pleasure. And, as you said, at the end of the World Cup, we'll chat again, and, we'll see where our predictions can.
Sports Social Podcast Network.